Hello and welcome to another episode of the 60 Go podcast. My name is Tom Canfell and it's great to have your company. My guest today is Jharal Yow Yeh. If careers were based on just the first 50 games, Jharal would probably be an immortal. But it was great to have him on today to have a chat about all things going on in the world of footy. And for as good as a player he was, he's an even nicer bloke. Hope you enjoy our chat. Here's Jharal Yow Yeh. I'm joined by Jharal Yow Yeh as the next guest of the 60 Go podcast. Jharal, good afternoon, mate. How are you?
Good, Tom. How are you, mate?
Really good. Appreciate you coming on, and I've got 6 topics to cover with you today, and I'll kick things off with the Dolphins. In the pre-season, most people would have had the Dolphins struggling this year. They were in most people's bottom 4, and they were the favourite for the wooden spoon. They swung and missed a lot of marquee players: Munster, Ponga, Grant, Smith, Walsh, to name a few. I know it's only round 5 now, but how have they been able to exceed everyone's expectations so far?
I think when you've got a coach like Wayne, and he's been here before. He loves the pressure situations. He's been a part of a side that actually just started in the Broncos way back in the day as well, when he first started really his professional coaching. So I think we write them off because you're right. You talk about those marquee players. They didn't actually get the men that they really wanted on the big money. But I think in a way, it's probably going to help them later down the track in their dynasty and how they grow as an organisation. We know that they've obviously got some great people behind the scenes. I just think that as we move forward and watch them play a bit of footy, are they going to be able to handle, later in the year footy with not as much depth as we all thought they'd have.
After missing on those players, do you think Wayne secretly loved the fact that they weren't able to land one of those superstars so he could go, okay, this team is going to be moulded exactly how I want it?
Yeah, I think in a way when you talk about the sorry, mate. When you talk about how particular he was about, I think, Munster, and obviously there was a little bit of a drama there about how he wanted to get him really bad. I think at the end of the day, it's probably going to help them in the long run. We know what he's like. Like I said before, we know what he's like. We know where the idea he has in terms of what he wants and how he wants to grow this. So, at the end of the day, maybe not having the marquee player, is going to be the best thing for them, and they're going to be able to, prove a couple of people wrong. But also in the gist of that as well, it doesn't mean if they don't go far, then they've actually got something to fall back on and say, well, we didn't really get our marquee player. So it's sort of this is what I mean about Wayne. He loves these situations. He's thriving off this right now.
This is where it's going to be really testing for them, though, isn't it? We've got Sean O'Sullivan down, Felice Kafusi suspended, so a bit of reshuffling here. Their depth certainly gets tested from now.
Yeah, it does, and this is what I think the biggest issue was with a lot of critics who were in the game, me included. I didn't realise they were going to get off to such a great start, but I also, thought that they weren't going to be they weren't going to be busters straight out of the blocks, but this will definitely test them this time because we know that they don't have great depth. But in saying that, I'll go back to him again. He really, really thrives with these moments, Wayne does. And when you're backed up against the wall, he's always been the coach that always comes out the other side. So I know I'm probably getting splinters in my bum here and saying I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but I still think they're really going to struggle if they lose a couple more key spots. I mean, obviously, yes, you lose Sean, but you gain an experienced half in Anthony Milford to put his hand up and stand up now. So, they've obviously got some youngsters, some great talent coming through as well. So it will be a test for them. If they keep their forward pack together, I think they'll put a dent in this competition. But, it really will be tested for the rest of the year.
As a former player, I'll ask you, do you view them as an attractive club to go to?
Yeah, I do actually. The reasons why I say yes, because I mean, does it get any better? You know, living on the water or in Redcliffe, you've got a community behind you. You're basically Manly, but in Queensland. Like that's just the way I look at it. Like you've got a whole town behind you. You get around the town. You've got a great vibe. And that club has got a lot of history. The Dolphins do. I mean, this club is the Dolphins, but they've got a lot of history that I think people will want to be a part of. And at first, when they first came onto the scene, there was a bid for Ipswich as well. And then when you juggle that up together, I mean, there's been some great footy players come out of Ipswich, but players these days want a place where they can live that's nice. And 40 minutes, 35 minutes from the city of Brisbane. You live on the water, got a beautiful golf course up there, some nice pubs to go to. You don't really have to go too far. Sunny Coast is not far away, so it's a very attractive club to go to if you are a hockey player.
Big story in the past week, the 11-day stand down for concussions. What do you think of the new change?
Love it. Obviously, being a former player myself, and me personally going out with my career in injuries, I never really thought about concussions, obviously, when I was playing in the game. But the more I think about it now, there might be some underlying stuff, in my career maybe. I had a lot of head knocks playing footy, and even just little things like, I mean, I know this sounds weird, but going on little rides with my son that twist and turn, I get very dizzy really easy. So I think that's played a big part in where I am at the moment. I think having to have those things in play to make sure that we're protecting the players, as much as you don't want that because you're a competitor, and you'll see every single player try and fight it to come off the field. They don't want to come off because they want to win. It's going to be tough to get used to, but they will realise that later down the track that it's going to be the best thing for them.
When you played, Jharal, this is only 10 years ago, and we're learning things all the time, and it's a constantly changing environment because we're learning new stuff about the brain all the time. When you played, did you see guys that were knocked out, for example, the week before, and was there any subconscious thought of going, man, you were only concussed 4 days ago for a 5-day turnaround, and yet here we are? Was there ever that thought when you were playing? Because it wasn't that long ago.
Never. I mean, I can only really talk of personal experiences, but
Sure.
Concussions for me, I just went in with everything, and I wasn't as big when I was first started my career, so you needed to, as in the sense of to try and put those bigger boys down. I just sort of remember getting told things like, don't go to sleep. You've got to stay awake for a long period of time. We've got to monitor you. But as the week went on, I got better, and I never missed a game from having a concussion in a short turnaround ever. But and that seems crazy to think that now players have got a 11-day turnaround to even think about, and for the Broncos, for me, it was Friday on Friday, so I never really, it was always Friday night games for me, so I'd be concussed on a Friday and I'd play on a Friday. So this is why I say that it needs to happen, because otherwise we're going to see underlying stuff that happens after rugby league, and it's going to be too late. So we need to protect our players. They're the ones that put the bums on their seats, and I'm all for the new rules.
Do you think it's actually vital now that we follow a similar strategy as they do, for example, in the NFL, where there's actually a 2-week gap in between the conference championships and then the Super Bowl? Do you think we should have a 2-week gap in between the prelim and the grand final?
I think the reason why we probably wouldn't have that is because it takes away of it's a different game, the NFL. There's a lot of stoppages. There is a lot of planning to go into. I think you can lose so much execution in 2 weeks not playing footy.
Yeah.
So I think you lose that, the competitiveness and the sharpness of the game. If you wait 2 weeks to play a semi or a grand final, you're going to lose that. Yeah, you're going to lose that factor of players losing a little bit of spark about them, and we don't want that. We obviously want them at the best of their best, and that's why it's hard to watch, Origin games and then players sit out. It is sucky, but that's the whole reason we play Origin so close together and games, because when you play those games, you come out more confident and you play even better when you come back and play in the NRL game. So there's a method behind the madness, and it does suck in that way, but that's the reason why I think the game does it, is because they're going to get the best out and they're going to get the best product out of the game.
It's bound to happen. We're going to have a stage sooner rather than later where someone will get a concussion before a really big game this year, whether it be Origin or a final, for example. And if that player says, I feel fine, it's my body, I want to play, and it's all good, what would your argument be against him? As someone who's played and has had some post-career symptoms yourself.
Yeah, I mean, like I said again, it's a tough one to talk about, because these boys don't want to stop playing at the top of their game. Yep. They don't want to, but I think it needs to be, if it's taken out of the player's hands, that's the best way to do it, and they're not going to like it. And you might miss grand finals, you might miss, you might miss big games like Origin. But at the end of the day, we've got to take into account the players' care, and that's just the fact of it. And no one's going to like hearing, what I've just said there.
Yes.
That's just the fact. But you can't risk something for right now, for the long-term health of you and your family that are in the long run, because it could be fatal. I mean, we've seen things that, and we've seen, science, that comes with this. So you've got to make sure that you're doing all the right things, and if that means you're going to miss out, well, that means you just got to be better at how you play the game and how you go into tackles, how you twist and turn. They've got to practice. They're going to have to practice more techniques, tackling techniques, where you put your head, and that just comes with the game and how it evolves.
Someone in the news in the past week or so, in particular, has been one of your coaches while you're at the Broncos, and that was Anthony Griffin. What was it like in your experience getting coached by Hook?
Yeah, I get this question asked a lot, away from media. Like, people just ask me, what was he like? And I have nothing but respect for this man. He was a great coach, great mentor for a lot of us young players that were coming through the Broncos. And if you're asking me, was it easy to play for him? Yeah, it was so easy. I didn't really have to think about it too much. He brought such a great culture, and the way he dealt with things at the Brisbane Broncos. You can ask any of those under-20s players, majority of those Broncos players that have played with him will say the same thing as me. So I'm not sure what's going on at St. George at the moment.
He certainly went through a transitional period with you guys there at the Broncos and at Penrith as well. He's someone who I don't think gets the credit he deserves. For example, he's pretty much the only coach ever to be sacked while in the top four before 2 weeks of the finals at Penrith. Do you feel the same, that he probably doesn't get the credit he deserves?
Yeah, look, and like I said, I know Hook. He would never be reading into anything like this. He's always got his sights set on the job that's in front of him. But it's really hard, I suppose, when you take on such a big club like St. George, and all the history that comes with it. It's a tough, it's a really tough situation to be in. For him right now, I mean, I'm not sure how they get better. I know that he's done a lot of work with the juniors down there and how they've developed and what they've done. So we don't actually know. You don't actually see what's on the behind the scenes stuff with Anthony. And I'm not sure where they're going to go. Where he's going to go. I don't think he does get credit. I know that he's only came on back in 2021, I believe, and they haven't made the final. Just missed out last year. Haven't had the greatest start. this year. But the way I see it in this coaching gig, you either had let him go, before at the end of last year, or you let him play out the year and say, look, halfway through the year, this is going to be, or you just let him play it out and see where he goes, and then you deal with the contract situation after the season's finished. Because I just don't see how sacking a coach, and this is just not with Anthony, I just don't see how you can see sacking a coach now does anything for the club. Like it for me, it doesn't do anything for them. It actually puts them back to square one. So the last time they went well was 2018. That was Benny Hunt's first year. They've lost a lot of players, and this is their second coach now since then. So they weren't far off it last year, and I believe they've just got to give him an opportunity to make things right. And if they don't, well, that's their decision. But I think they're making it wrong.
What's it like as a player when you know your head coach is under the pump?
That's a good question, because I've never actually been in that situation before. So it'd be hard for me to say, because I've always been with coaches that have always. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. Ivan Henjak, sorry. I was coached by Ivan Henjak, and Hook actually took his position after about, I think it was maybe after. Yeah, it was actually before the season started. So, look, I just don't think you read into it. Like, I didn't really think anything of it when I was playing. My job was, to suit up every week and to make sure that I, did the right thing and put whatever number I got put on my back. That's what I did. So, obviously, you don't want those disruptions, but if it happens, that's life. You got to move on, and you just got to move forward.
On the reverse side, have you ever been in a situation where a marquee player at your club was coming off contract, and does it get talked about amongst the group?
Yeah, probably when I was in there. Back in my day, it was more of a piss take. Like, it never really was serious like it is now. I think more people are worried about if you're going to sign, or you're going to shout a feed, or you're going to take us to the pub. But because there's just so much media around what happens with contracts and with managers that probably leak stuff, because it's a game of rugby, it's a world of rugby league, and in professional sports, we all know that managers like to talk to other clubs, or put things out there to try and put their prices up for their player. That's smart. That's just the way that this game's run. So it'd be hard to not watch a marquee player go through some media scrutiny. To me, if it was me, I'm not a person who likes to. There's different horses for courses, and I'm just a person. I'll just say, if you put something in front of me and it's something that I like, I'll just sign it. I'm not even going to, because that's obviously you want the most money, but I'd rather get that out of the way and then play good footy instead of having a circus around me, because we've seen it in the last couple of months with obviously Mitchell Moses and his situation. I mean, they probably did it at the right time. I mean, imagine if Parramatta had lost to Penrith and he just signed that contract.
Yeah. Can
you imagine the stick he'd be getting? I mean, he's already getting stick because he hasn't won that grand final yet. He just hasn't done that yet. But in saying that, I'm glad he's staying at Parramatta because, for the Parramatta fans, that's what they wanted. So, as a fan, you're probably pretty happy in that situation.
Well, I was going to mention Mitch, and we've just seen him go through this, and no matter what the exact figure is, we know that it was big money, right? So, and he lingered around for a while. Do you think that there is a point where there is any resentment by his teammates during those periods, going, "Hey, come on, this is a distraction now"?
Depends. If you're playing shit footy, yeah, it probably is. But I actually don't think Mitch was playing terrible in the first couple of. I think their team as a collective was playing pretty bad. Actually not playing pretty bad. Sorry, I'll take that back, because they lost 4 points the first 2 weeks. So it was a tight game against Melbourne round one, and I think they lost against who was it? They only lost by 4 points against Manly, and then they obviously go. Who else did they play? But anyway, Cronulla. But it wasn't much in it. There was not much in it, so they were just off the mark. So if Mitch is playing terrible, then you're probably saying, oh, look, you need to sort this out because it's affecting your game. But it seems like it wasn't. He was playing well, but in saying that, when he did play Penrith and he'd had signed a contract, he played out of his skin. He kicked the most kicking meters in the NRL history. So there might be something to it.
Fair enough. Can we talk about South Sydney for a moment? Cody and Latrell obviously are supremely talented. There's no denying that. But over the past 3 weeks, I'd argue in particular, Cody's lack of ability to control his emotions at some stages has cost them games. What do you see when you watch South play?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one because we've always seen that with Cody. I think we've got to come to the conclusion as people who watch the game, that's just how he plays. And I think Jason Demetriou understands how both of those superstars perform and how they wear their heart on their sleeves. So he understands that. It's just how, I suppose Jason's just got to get the best out of him and how he directs that in the right direction. And as a coach, it's never easy to do that. But, I mean, it's a good headache to have because once they hit their straps, it's hard to stop them too. They'll put that team on their shoulders and just go. So yeah, I love the way they play. I do love the way they play, but they do need a tiny few things they need to fix up. But like I said, I think it's not us to be able to decide that. It's Jason Demetriou and see how they fix up their type of game. I love when South play expansive footy. It's some of the best footy in the competition, and would we really want to change Rabbitohs too much? They've been to the prelim grand finals in the last since about 16. I think they've featured in those big games so many times. So as a Rabbitohs fan, if you're a Rabbitohs fan, you're salivating again for this year because it's hard to break that squad up. None of them want to go anywhere. They all want to stay around. So they're obviously building a great culture there at that club. It's just when they start to sort of fall apart a little bit, when players start to go somewhere else, that's when you'll probably see a bit more cracks in that side.
Finally, Jharal, I'd just like to ask you a little bit about yourself. Your career was obviously derailed through a really unfortunate injury. What was the biggest source of strength in what I can imagine was a pretty lonely time?
Caught me off guard with that one, Tom. I think for me, probably, I mean, it's a pretty cliche answer, but, family and friends, having people close in a really tough time when you end your career. Something you love doing since you were a kid at 21 years old, 22 years old. So it's a pretty heavy thing to think about. But, man, I've landed on my feet, so to speak, pardon the pun. Didn't land on my feet that night, obviously. But in my world, I've succeeded and probably gone over and above to where I thought I would be in my life at the moment. So, you've got people who are still trying to achieve things that I did at 22 years old, which, I'm never going to be upset about that. I'm so happy that I had those opportunities to play for my country, state, and for my beloved Broncos. But I've like I said, I've just come leaps and bounds in who I am as a person. If you told me that I'd be doing, my own breakfast show here in Brisbane 5 years ago, I'd be telling you talking shit, pretty much. If you told me that, I'd be, on doing content for Neds on the NRL, their NRL content, I'd be, the same thing. And, I'm working for a company that has grown and come leaps and bounds over the last 5 years in Bloke in a Bar with Denny Kemp. And, I'm part of something really special there. So I can't really fault anything that I've done after my footy career. And I've got a little family now, I've got a wife, got a son. So I thoroughly think that, and I'm thoroughly enjoying my life. So, for any footy players out there who think that rugby league is the only way, well, you can land on your feet somewhere else as well.
Has anyone ever come to you when they've had a significant injury or their career might have been at a bit of a crossroads? And what was your advice to them?
Yeah, I've had a few. I'm not sure if I've ever had someone come to me. I'm sort of the person who always reached out to people, because I can understand their frustration or their pain. So I'm always the one to take the first step, I suppose, to help anyone, whether that's contacting them over social media. Social media is such a great thing and such a terrible thing at times,
Yeah.
but you can contact people you never even thought you could at times. So yeah, look, I've always, my advice for people is what I sort of just said then. There's life. I think a lot of these footy, a lot of players that play the game think that's all they are, is a person who can play rugby league. Because I know I thought I was. I thought that's the only thing I could do in my life. So, I don't know, I try to reiterate to people who, have injuries, who think they might be over, that your life's only just beginning, really. I mean, people retire at 34. It's actually laughable, Tom. We're sitting here and say, think about that. You retired from playing the game of footy at 34. Your life's only just begun. So, I just try to explain to people that rugby league is something that it's a privilege to play this game at the highest level. So if you get that opportunity, don't think that you're going to do it forever, because it might not be. Only a small amount of people get to do it. So, but I want to reiterate to them that it's so important to understand that you are bigger than just putting on a jersey and playing footy. Yes, that might be part of your identity, but you've got so much more strings to your bow. And I've tried to sort of myself go away a little bit from the game just to understand that. And 14 and a half years at the Brisbane Broncos, and then moved on and didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And now I'm making more money than I was, because I work my bum off.
Yeah.
And now I'm loving it, and all that stuff is going towards, my labour in my life, and that's my family, my wife, my mum, my brother, and my little guy who is going to be the next generation for us. So, that's probably my biggest advice, and what I've said and what I will say to any footy player.
My last question to you is, you obviously had to transfer from playing to a post-playing career a lot earlier than expected. What did you do to help you in that process when you realised that this was probably it? And also, do you think that the game can be doing more to help players?
The question about if the game could be doing more, maybe. But I'm not, like I said, I've separated myself, fully from the game now, so I couldn't actually tell you how deep it goes, like behind closed doors. So, but I know that, I did get a lot of help by the Brisbane Broncos, as in the sense of, what do you want to do? Not that they gave me the best guidance. They gave me options, but if I had an opportunity, I would have probably caressed me a little bit more and helped me through different phases of my life. The answer is, we could always be better, right? I think they can always be better in helping, players do this, because I think you look at this game, it's like an apprenticeship, right? If you do your apprenticeship all these years and you finally get to your job. I see a lot of my mates who did apprenticeships and then got their trade, and then they didn't want to do it because they just had enough. And that's sort of the way sometimes the game is. It's not that you don't want to do it, it's that you don't make it. And you've given all your time and effort into put all your eggs into one basket. It's really hard to separate yourself from the identity that you have. That is rugby league. So I think we're getting better at it, Tom. Don't get me wrong. I think we're getting so much better, and as the years go on, we will get way better. So I hope the competition really grabs a hold of that life after footy for our footy players.
Well, Jharal, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the 60O podcast today. It's been a real thrill to get to meet you in the past couple of weeks. We caught up for a drink a couple of weeks ago when you were in town. Really appreciate your time and coming on. Hopefully not the last time.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Really appreciate you coming on and telling my story a little bit. Too easy, Tom.
A big thanks to Jharal for coming on the show. It's a big thrill to work with and talk to people who were not only amazing on the field, but even better off it. And that's certainly the case with Jharal. By the way, if you want to get in contact with me, you can on Twitter at @tcanfell. And don't forget to give the 60 Go Facebook page a like as well. My name is Tom Canfell. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe. And until next time, this has been a 60 Go podcast, and that is full time.